Hello and welcome to Shy Talk, an Irish history podcast. This week we've got the first of two episodes that we've recorded with the Irish Rock and Roll Museum experience in Dublin, which is honestly a very fun time, and you should all go check it out if you're in Dublin. This first episode is about Rory Gallagher, and we recorded it downstairs in the main part of the museum. And then the second episode we did, which will be out next week, was about Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy, and that was recorded in the Lynott room, which is full of really interesting stuff that mostly from Phil's mother, Philomena. She donated a whole lot of stuff there, so it was like the whole place is jam-packed full of guitars and tour jackets and first press records and all sorts of interesting stuff. So go check that out. And while you're clicking on things, in the description of this episode, there will be links to our upcoming gig in Dublin in the Laughter Lounge next January, January 30th. And you should go buy tickets to that as well. But if you're buying tickets to that, you can get a cheaper ticket for the show by signing up to the Patreon. It'll give you a discount code for the Laughter Lounge show. So why not just do that? There's loads of stuff up there at this stage. Extra episodes, film clubs, interviews with guests, part twos, behind the scenes stuff. That's all over there. But that's the whole pitch. Go see the Rock and Roll Museum. Go buy tickets to our show and sign up to the Patreon. And also enjoy this episode with Rory Gallagher.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. History and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall.
Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish lineage to find. Joseph from Carlisle and Kevin the dog guide you through the ways of Shine.
Like all good rock and roll stories from Ireland, this one starts with the ESB. Rory Gallagher's dad, Daniel, a dairyman, was a member of the Irish Free State Army, and he met his future wife, Monica, down south in Mexico.
He was a member of the Irish Free State Army? Okay. So I'm guessing when you asked him how to spell dairy,
he would have said a different... Yeah. That'll come up. It won't come up later. Well, because everyone knows Rory Gallagher's from two places.
Sure. I don't know if they do, but if they did, they think Cork and Donegal.
Well, Donegal and our hearts.
Our hearts.
Because fuck Cork.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone from Cork who's listening. We love you too. And sure, you can keep saying Rory's from there as well.
Well, they have a giant mural. What town's he supposed to be from?
Well, so in Ballyshannon in Donegal.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas in Cork, this is Cork City.
Is it? I feel like it's Ballyshannon. I feel like I've been somewhere that has a giant mural to him and they've tried to lay a claim to him. I thought it was in Cork.
We'll get through the memorials at the end.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So his dad worked for the Free State Army and he met his wife, Monica, down south, her being a Cork woman.
Yeah.
So he was sent up to Ulster to help in the construction of Cathalines. I'm going to say Cathalines, but that's not what it is. The hydroelectric power station, damming the River Erne at Ballyshannon.
Okay.
So the joke you would always go with Irish people, with musicians, that, well, I say, from the 4 documentaries I watched,
right,
and any of the articles I could find online, it would say that, sure, Rory's dad had to go bring electricity to Ireland just so his son could play the old rock and roll.
That's a great joke.
Yeah, which I think he didn't know at the time that his son was going to be a world famous musician. Was
it the big hydroelectrical dam?
Yeah.
Okay.
So his dad was sent up there, so that's why that Rory, that's why they have Gallagher Fest. Rory Gallagher Fest up in Ballyshannon.
Okay.
But the family only lived there for about 18 months.
Right.
So like this giant, if there's like, it's Cork and Ballyshannon and Donegal that lay claim to Rory Gallagher, and they fight about it constantly. Ballyshannon obviously
and he spent about a wet week between the two of them.
So he goes to Derry because Rory's dad, Daniel, so that dam was the first major work co-operated by the North and the South.
Yeah. Let's see if they can run a power station before they can run a country.
Yeah, we'll give them that first.
Power station sharing agreement.
Now, I did read that they ended up destroying a salmon run at the time. That an English travel writer, Richard Twiss, said in 1775, a scene of such a singular nature as is not to be found elsewhere and is as unique to Ireland as bullfights are to Spain.
Okay.
But we took electricity
Get
over
rid of
there.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. Salmon, that's the thing of the past.
Yeah, they rebuilt the Salmon Gap somewhere, but it doesn't have the beauty of a Richard Twiss.
Yeah.
But now music and arts were part of Rory's DNA, as his father played accordion and sang in the Tír Conall Céilí band in Donegal, and his mother was an actor in the Abbey Players in Ballyshannon.
Okay.
The couple had Rory on March 2nd, 1948, in what was known as the Rock Hospital,
Yeah.
which it's all building up. If you couldn't get it already.
To him being, so he was born in the Rock Hospital in 1948. Is there a plaque to him there now?
There's a plaque to Rory everywhere. He's like Joyce.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah. But as fun as that story is, seemingly his ma had a terrible time in that hospital giving birth. So
Yeah, but who hasn't? Come on now,
yeah,
don't sully.
it was 1948
Yeah,
that there was hospitals weren't anything but a bed.
they hadn't invented the raffle that would set up the HSE yet. So women were having a bad time.
But
In and out of hospital. But this is about rock and roll legends.
so because of that,
Yeah.
that she then decided to have a home birth for Rory's brother Donal.
Oh, okay, that is a bad time.
Yeah, not
They-
much worse.
I guess they do leave that bit out.
And they do that in Derry, in London, Derry.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rory's younger brother Donal is born there on in the Bogside at their grandmother's house.
Right.
So at an early age, Rory had taken to rock and roll as the American Navy had a base and a port there.
The American Navy had a base in Derry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was
I didn't know that.
it was neither did I, and it was because of their antenna that they would have had access to the AFN, the American Forces Network radio.
Right. So he's listening to rock and
So he could
roll.
hear all the American jives, the shucks, the jigs and reels. I don't know
Yeah.
that's more of an Irish one. But so Rory would have had his first exposure to rock and roll and the blues, which I know is mad because I've asked my dad before, and he was like, you'd never get onto the radio.
Yeah, but he wasn't beside a American naval base.
Much, or if he was, he wasn't admitting it.
Yeah. That's great. So they were picking up.
So they're
blues.
getting that there, yeah. So he had every opportunity. That's why we didn't make it.
That's
as
fair,
musicians
yeah.
in the 90s and early 2000s.
You know who was stationed in a naval base? A little private named Elvis Presley.
Called Kurt Cobain.
He said, "Here, kid, I'm up and eating this where I'm going." They handed him a bag of heroin.
But so in 1956, Rory's ma brought himself and his brother Donal down to Cork, where his grandmother had a bar on McCurtain Street.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they lived in the city. I think his dad was a bit too fond of the drink. It said he couldn't find work, so he stayed up north. But you could imagine you could have went down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So they moved as far away from him as possible while still being on the island.
Well, still been on the island,
Okay.
all the way down to Cork.
Yeah.
And he said he wasn't finding much work now that the war was done.
Was he working during the war?
Well, I
He
guess
was building the
he was
dam.
working for the army.
On the army,
working at doing the army, doing the ASB. But after that, I imagine there was no major work done in Ireland until 1990.
And also, with no more army work to be done. It's 1950s Northern Ireland. There's no work for a man with a gun around here.
I've been down asking every day.
Would you not just take it back? Come on, get it going again.
But
So he's kicking his heels up in Derry by himself.
Yeah, and he would staying with his ma, I guess. But he doesn't ever travel down with them. But now it's said that his parents, so him included, would have given him a ukulele.
Yeah, okay. He's as surprised as anyone.
What is it? It's
Christmas
the
morning.
blues, the rock and roll blues. Well, I got you the instrument of a 5'2" female comedian.
They say it's all the rage in Hawaii. You're fond of the naval bases. You'll love this.
Or do you think it was just a small guitar and they cut two of the strings off?
Yeah, maybe.
But he was meant to be obsessed with music even by that age. I guess he would have seen musicians. His dad was in a Céilí band, so he would have been out gigging. And
who played the accordion? His dad.
Yeah, and then his ma was part of the Players Club.
Okay.
But now at that age as well, it wouldn't have just been music. He loved football,
Of course.
and that was it. That was
Not yet.
It was a big lead up to it.
But
It was
to
him.
be fair, that's like if you channel those two as a teenager in Ireland, you've really got all.
You'll at least fit in until you get out of secondary school.
Yeah, you've got it all really.
Yeah,
That's it.
Now, do you know North Monastery School in Cork City?
North Monastery School, no.
No, it seems to be. I looked it up online and there was like all these famous people, and there was a lot of famous people there, but it has been going since like 100 years.
Yeah, Cork is fairly sneakily Protestant.
Oh, well,
As in, sometimes...
Do you know what? So was Londonderry.
Yeah, but it was much more... It was more populated than Dublin in those areas in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And, you know, but there was a bit of money knocking around before they burnt it to the ground.
Well, but at the age of 12, probably wasn't too much money knocking around. He wins a talent competition, and he uses all of that money to go buy himself a new ukulele. No, he's onto the guitars by now.
he's just playing air guitar. They're like, oh,
He's gonna buy a bigger ukulele but not put strings on it.
So he buys him his first guitar.
Yeah, he buys himself. Yeah, he buys himself a proper an actual guitar. I guess that at the time, a lot of people will say like wooden guitars, which in my mind would just mean like an acoustic guitar.
Sure,
but I believe that they're different things. I think it's just a way that like the equivalent of like, I don't know, wooden shoes,
right?
Which wouldn't be good.
But probably like homemade, like not a brand.
It's a homemade guitar. But then as soon as you look,
are lads tripping over themselves in Cork?
I was trying to find the answer to this, and then you look it up online, and then everyone says, "Well, Brian May's guitar was made out of a piece of wood that him and his dad just carved in his shed, and that worked. That was fine for him." And okay, fair enough. That's true. He did also overdub his songs like 200 times for every single guitar, like just every track. You're like, all right, well, sounds like that guitar was a piece of shit.
Wiz, did the Brian May he made his guitar out of a bit of wood?
Yeah. Oh, no,
yeah. Is he? Well, not okay.
Yeah, like George Washington's teeth.
Well, maybe
he made a guitar out of his teeth.
Didn't well, there's that. You'll probably have this later on in the script that Brian May credits Rory for his style. Maybe he just did that. Maybe it was the wooden guitar that when he talked about how he wanted to mimic Rory's style.
Well, no. Because Rory's famous, if not for being I was going to say it's definitely for being a musician, but it's being a musician with one particular type of guitar.
Okay.
So it's 3 years after he wins the talent show.
Well, sorry, is everyone in Cork tripping over themselves to say that they sold it to him?
That they sold it to him?
Yeah, the original guitar.
No, it's down from Conway's guitar shop or music store, I guess, at the time. So everyone knows exactly where it is, which is why we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
At the very end, probably, when we can really let fly. Sheena Conway, I'm calling you out.
Okay. It was full of termites. That's how they got his rock and roll sound.
Well, it's 1963, and he buys a 1961 Fender Stratocaster, the guitar of choice of Buddy Holly and Rory's dream guitar.
Okay.
Some people say it's the very first guitar Fender Strat to ever come into Ireland, which is disputed. But Rory wasn't the very first owner. So it cost him £100, which in today's money is probably close to 3,000. I looked that up. I looked it up because I heard so many people say you couldn't even put a price on that in today's money. And then I just did one of those online calculators.
Yeah, but to be fair,
they wouldn't have had access to the. Yeah,
I think that is just people talking about how bad the past was.
But
it was pretty bad though.
But even so, when I looked it up,
you wouldn't even think of buying a guitar for
£3,000 for a guitar for a 15-year-old. No one would do that. Yeah, even now, if that was
no one would do that. But for £100, you could probably have bought downtown Cork.
Yeah, or that music shop.
Probably.
Yeah. But now, so his ma wasn't too happy, and Rory's seemingly famous.
How did Rory get the money? Not from the talent competition.
No, he would have been saving up a little bit, and then he had just a deposit for it. So he would have put down like the 10 or 15% and had it on layaway and just like paid it off. Now his ma was meant to have flipped out when she found out the price of it.
Sure.
And then he had said, "Oh, sure, don't worry. This guitar is so good, I'll be able to play lead and rhythm. So I won't have to have another guitarist. So I'll keep all of his money. I'll pay it back twice as quick."
That makes sense.
Which is the rationale of a 15-year-old.
Of a 15-year-old, yeah.
But if some say, in terms of being the first Strat in Ireland, that's possible. But yeah, Rory wasn't the first owner. There was a man called Jim Conlon, who played in the Royal Showband. He had ordered a red guitar, Stratocaster, and what came up was a sunburst coloured one. So the opposite.
Yeah, but also... Okay.
The colour doesn't matter.
James isn't coming across. If he bought like a $3,000 guitar and it arrived and he was like, "Oh, it's the wrong colour," it's fucking in a shop.
Well, he was in a show band, the Royal Showband. I imagine they were making pretty good money.
Probably.
So he probably do whatever he wanted. But now
he wanted it red.
He wanted it red.
Red, white and blue.
He waited anywhere between 6 to 18 months for the right one to finally come back over. Which makes me...
It was a rough time in the band.
It might have been the first guitar in Ireland if he was like, "Oh, this is the wrong colour. Oh, don't worry, I'll call them up now." Was it? 18 days. No. So 18 months later, the red guitar comes back into Conway's, and then Jim Conlon just switches out the guitar. He gets the brand new one, leaves the other one used, so it's probably worth more than that, than the £100 Rory actually spent on it. He would use that guitar then to join a show band on tour, the Fontana Showband.
Okay.
So it's either that he goes to England in a show band first and comes back and joins the Fontana band, or else they're all the exact same band. But looking into it further, it doesn't really seem to matter because Rory hated the show bands.
Yeah.
It was, as he said himself, it was like doing his time in the military service.
I think they all joined show bands in the 60s because you could tour.
You could tour, and it's the only place you could play an electric guitar.
You could make money as well.
Yeah, so they would get to, he would, as he said, he would get to, it's the only place you get to plug it into a Vox AC30, which was his famous guitar amp.
Right.
So that's the one, and that's what Brian May always said, is like that's his sound is just an AC30 with a tube screamer.
Right.
Guitar pedal just to overdrive it, and then that's just it, because that's what Rory used to do, and he used to just crank it up to 11 and just go like that. In fairness, he probably was one of the only lads to do that, because everyone else was like, you could just use, like, at the time everyone was using giant huge Marshall stacks and like 4x12 speakers, and it would be a nightmare to carry around. He was just like still using a little combo amp.
Sure.
For years and years into his career.
Okay.
But like, so I don't know how much, like, obviously he was going to be into gear, but then a lot of it, when you see online, a lot of people just say it's like, oh yeah, it's the AC30 and then that guitar, and that's all he ever played, until you look him up playing live and you're like, there's a Telecaster there, and there's like obviously he played an acoustic guitar and he had like a steel guitar as well, but it's just those sounds until you go look up his pedal board and stuff, and it's not just the tube screamer. There's like, oh yeah, throughout the years he's like, I'll just add a flanger and an octave, and like it just go and go and go, but then you know it doesn't grow as much. The lower is
The
just
lower,
having,
you only had one guitar played from a bit of wood that he found on the beach.
Yeah. And then that guitar stripped away from all of the sweat because he was playing it for so long.
Yeah.
Now that might be true, but then I saw a lot of people say that he had really high acidic levels. It is like blood and sweat.
Okay.
So that helped strip away the paint.
All right. He had acidic sweat.
Yeah. Now I maybe it was just a bad paint job. Maybe he was, when no one was looking, just chipping away at it with a little pick.
That does add to the lore as well, I suppose.
Yeah. But at that age, he wouldn't have been listening to show bands, even at 15, 16. He was listening to he got into the early skiffle, your Lonnie Donegans of the world.
Sure.
He would have found like the likes of Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
But show bands were so rehearsed at the time, he'd have to even do like comedic skits.
Yeah.
In like every night, just like rinse and repeat.
Yeah. It's funny to imagine these guys in show bands, especially at their in their teenage years, at their most sort of, I just want to play, fucking get out there and shred. And they just have to play the old standards to 1,000 women around Ireland.
Which doesn't, now when you say that doesn't sound that bad.
But like the music of, and listen, I'm the big Joe Dolan fan, but like, Big Tom Dolan, that sort of stuff, considering where these guys ended up, it's funny to imagine them playing. They would have been wearing like polka shirts and I don't know. Well, just like playing backing music for crooners, basically.
I'd be thinking Suits, like a fancy. I was gonna say like a fancier Talking Heads, like the Talking Heads.
The Talking Heads, yeah. But wearing suits that are far too big for them because it's the only thing in the country.
Exactly. Yeah. But so show bands were a mean to an end, and it wasn't long before he convinced the rest of the lads in the band to change their style. Get a different look.
Lads, what about instead of playing this, we just did something that wasn't shit?
Yeah, like the Beatles, which at the time would have been seen far out there rock.
Pretty, yeah. They started off playing show tunes,
with the Rolling Stones as well. That they're all just doing that to break in. And once you're in there, you can do whatever you want. Which is within 20 years, people will look back and go, "What's that cringe bollocks?"
Sure. I mean, the early albums of the Beatles is a lot of like, I want to hold your hand. And
But then when they play it live, they'd sing, I want to hold your gland, like a boob.
Amazing.
And they'd all laugh to each other, but no one could actually hear them because it was just 80,000 screaming women.
I was watching some documentary about them recently, and they were saying, when they started off touring, whenever, I don't know what year they ended up in Japan, but whenever they got over there, they realized that they were actually shit and they hadn't been able to hear themselves play for months. But they weren't as well known in Japan, so they played live and they're like, oh fuck, we need to practice.
Because it was just like thousands and thousands of screaming women. I still don't know the validity to that.
Apparently, well, that's according to them.
Surely the like electrified amps would be louder than...
Don't know. I bet they couldn't hear them. They
was
hadn't
it
heard
before they
themselves.
had monitors or like obviously
They
in-ear
wouldn't have,
monitors,
yeah,
but things
like-
on stage, sure, like
Yeah.
right in front of you.
But
Maybe
even
it's true.
and big stages, they're standing away from each other.
I'm just of
And
the
hear
opinion that, and I know we're recording this in the Irish Rock and Roll Museum. I think all musicians are liars.
Well, they're all famous for being out of their minds most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So their recollections are probably like we've both watched a lot of documentaries for our respective musicians, and there's just a litany of other musicians coming in to be like,
I'd say the same musicians.
the same musicians be like, he
talking
was the
about
best I ever heard.
I
But,
just wish I could have been there to tell him how great I thought he was.
wait, who's this one for? He was the best musician I ever heard.
I remember one time I was in Hamburg with him gigging. Who are we talking about again?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all the same. You're always in Hamburg with him.
But yeah, the Fontana Showband around this time would have changed their name to Impact.
Nice.
The Impact Showband.
The Impact Showband?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They started
That's
playing...
a very funny name change.
Yeah.
That's just real, like,
You just have to keep
instead
the
of
Showband
Fontana, what about Impact
Showband.
Showband?
They start playing less mainstream stuff here, but it still wasn't enough for a rock and roll man like Rory.
Oh.
So he left the show band and Ireland behind, moving over to Germany in the mid-60s to play clubs with two other members of the band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's that's one of the first band changes now, or
Sure.
player changes within a band.
Yeah.
So he's over there for, I don't know, a year or a few, maybe two. He comes back in 1966 and he's offered the chance to play with an Irish band called the Axles.
Okay.
And he says, no, but I will take your drummer and bassist and go start my own band. And that's the formation of The Taste.
Nice.
What's maybe seen as one of Ireland's first real rock, blues rock bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What year is that? 68?
1966.
66.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because in 68, by then he would have moved to Belfast and he would have had a residency in the Maritime Hotel. Real rock here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Famous, the Maritime Hotel.
Okay.
So people said that at the time. I thought it was weird because they were like, oh, Rory would have stuck out like a sore thumb walking around with his long hair and denim jacket.
Yeah. Which is all of Belfast now.
Yeah.
In 2024.
But then they were like, people had already moved on to the mod culture
okay.
and stuff. So that maybe that never, I don't know. I would have thought that was prime time.
I guess he was a little ahead of the game because that's like 70s.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. 1968, terrible time to move to Belfast.
Terrible time to move to Belfast. And terrible time to make it one of your, like, he played there every year.
We've got you locked in for the next 10 years, Rory. In other news.
But he would have played there for all of that summer and parts of the next year. But he got a residency with The Taste over in the Marquee Club in Soho. Now,
Right.
that would have been proper famous. So Brian May would have seen him there. Jimi
This
Hendrix
is when
would
he
have
was coming
floated
into
around there at that time. Although I remember hearing at some point that he said himself, like in some interview, he wouldn't have been a big man for interviews, but he did say at some point after Hendrix passed, he's like, no, I remember him just being in the same room a few times, and I always wanted to go and say hello and be like, you're class. I never did. It's just, sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have
Well,
a feeling that if Rory was still alive today, he wouldn't have been doing these documentaries.
About other dead
About other
musicians.
dead
No,
musicians,
probably
yeah.
not. But what?
Or else he would have been, and he would have been, they're fucking shite.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
Wasn't
thought
much good. Hendrix died in 69 or 70? One of those two.
one of those.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, and this is when Brian May has gone down to see him every weekend to see his...
The future, future icons seeing current icons. And
Sure.
maybe,
I don't know if you have the story in there, but apparently, I think I was watching some interview with Brian May and he kept going down to see him and he really wanted to know Rory's sound. And he just asked him.
Yeah, and
he told him.
That's
Which
he told
was,
him,
which I don't know, feeds into the... He was the nicest guy in rock and roll. I asked him to show me what he was doing and he actually did it. Unlike everyone else who just spat at me and chased me out. I don't know who his peers were at the time, but this is a nice story, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it was Brian May as well who'd said that he went down and he wanted to ask him maybe for his guitar pick. And he's like, Rory, could I ask you a question? And Rory just gave him his guitar pick.
No.
Didn't even have to ask.
Here you
Which
go,
would be
kid.
like, if that wasn't what you wanted,
Yeah.
it's like,
No, I actually want the secret to your entire sound.
can I just get past you there? You're going to block in the hallway. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, here you go, here you go, here you go. Shut up.
I suppose back, before we've got such ready access to the internet, I guess it's probably closely guarded secret. Like if that was your sound.
I have
Someone
done
could mimic
videos for like bands who haven't released a single yet, and they've asked me not to take videos of their pedal boards, just in case it gets out to the world what their sound is. Create an air of mystique. But so the Marquee Club in Soho, we're going to be based there for a little while. They had played over in 1967. Before getting their residency in 68. But their first time playing there was a band called Robert Hurst and the Big Taste. So because of the slight name clashes...
Oh, he's the Taste.
Yeah.
Okay.
They changed the name of the Irish band to The Erection.
Nice.
Because of our long history of building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very 70s name.
Yeah. Now, Rory's ma wasn't a big fan of this.
She wouldn't even know what that was.
Someone would have had to tell her. It's like seeing, like when someone says, "You see what this lad's saying about you on the internet?" It's like if you didn't show that person, you'd never known. Like this wouldn't have been in the Cork newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
There's one gig in London. That's not making it back. That would have had to have been Rory or his brother saying, "You'd never guess what Rory's after doing over there."
What's an erection? Well, remember the night you got pregnant?
The Stork had one, but in the Marquee, they'd be seen by Polydor Records.
Yeah.
After a while, Polydor were interested. They wanted to sign him, but unfortunately, they said, "Rory, you're going to need a new drummer and a bassist."
Yeah.
Which are the two lads you stolen from another band. Now, I couldn't find out what happened to them, but I was like, did they just go back to Cork, or did they stay in London now?
Yeah.
Tour, like they had a band, they don't anymore.
Yeah.
They had a residency.
Can they go crawling back to the Axel or whatever band?
Who are now the old Fontana.
Sure.
Showband.
Yeah.
But their manager, Eddie Kennedy, had another band called Cheese on the go. And he put Rory in touch with Richard McCracken and John Wilson, and they formed a new band, Taste.
So they're back to Taste.
They've just changed. That was only for the one gig that they were called The Erection.
Okay. So much like
only.
many of your love trysts, The Erection didn't last very long.
Now they are just a power trio.
Yeah, they're just a power trio. Yeah, sure.
But so they've just dropped the.
So now they're just
Taste.
Yeah.
Like cream.
Like the who dropped the and just became the.
But speaking of cream, Taste would open for them during their farewell tour of 1968 before touring the US, opening for Clapton's next band, supergroup Blind Faith. So Taste would release 2 albums back-to-back years, 1969 self-titled Taste and the 1970 On the Boards, which is very good. That's one worth listening to. Yeah. All of these are worth listening to.
They're great albums.
But so 1970 was a big year for Taste, as they'd also play the Isle of Wight Festival.
Yes.
With such bands as The Who, Jimi Hendrix. But many thought that the lads from Ireland stole the show.
Retroactively when they were asked
after they
in
died
interviews specifically about But that I don't know, Ride Festival was meant to be like Woodstock for this side of the world. Or Woodstock 99 for this side of the world.
Or Spike Island.
Yeah.
For
the Isle of Wight.
But unfortunately, that gig was the end of Taste. Although they would finish out the year playing a New Year's Eve gig in Belfast, between managerial disputes and other members wanting to be on a par with the band's sole songwriter, Rory.
Yeah.
They finished. Now, I don't know if any of that's true.
Why? What do you think happened?
I don't know. Well, maybe, because it said, like, obviously Rory goes on to then have his solo career, but if he's writing all of the music and they're doing well and supporting all these giant bands, don't rock the boat.
Well, that's not how rock history goes.
Yeah, true. But I'd be thinking if it was like a rhythm guitarist or something like that, but if it's just the bass player and the drummer, it's a guitar band. It's just him soloing and singing.
Maybe they were sick of it being a guitar band. Maybe they wanted more drum solos in there.
More showband.
Yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of the history of music goes.
Yeah, managerial disputes.
But it's very rare.
Differences.
But like, it's very rare to have even multiple members of a band.
Right, no, it's going to be one person doing like the majority of the heavy lifting. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was more of like the managerial disputes, as Rory didn't really. I don't know if he would have trusted many people. There's a theme kind of pops up from here. Like the lads would stay with that manager and then go on to form a new band, Stud, which didn't really not up to much.
Okay.
Well, Rory went to Led Zeppelin manager Peter Grant and had him negotiate a solo contract instantly with Polydor.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'd let Grant sort that deal for him, but would then turn down his offer of becoming his manager, instead hiring his brother Donal.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the Led Zeppelin manager does that.
Yeah, you can be
Or
my
like,
agent just to get me this deal.
Yeah.
And then you're out the door.
But what year is this? What are Led Zeppelin up to at this point?
A lot. Yeah.
And he's like, nah, and I'm just gonna...
They're too commercial for me, which some people would have said, I guess.
There's such a thing as having too much experience. You won't want to be focused on Zeppelin and putting them around the world. You want a man, fresh eyes. You want a man, nothing else on his plate. You want a man who has zero knowledge of the industry whatsoever.
And will just go along with whatever you tell him.
Get my brother.
Yeah, because I imagine having a manager like Peter Grant might have got in the way of such things of like not wanting to release singles.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's his big thing. He didn't want singles.
He didn't
well,
want
I mean,
to
that's not his big thing, but that's a part of his. That's what he's best known for is not releasing singles. So managerial disputes, he might just disputed having a manager at all.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he gets his
or
brother
the
in.
manager wanting to make them famous, or do things like that.
Oh yeah,
So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess he would be a difficult one to manage.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to get to a level where I can tour around the world playing my music, but I don't want anyone to know me or know any of my songs.
Yeah, I want to be big.
Which, to be fair, that's what he's managed to do.
He has managed to do that, yeah.
He's everyone's favorite musician.
But
Every
yeah,
Irish musician's favorite musician. He's often in like the list of the best musicians on the country.
Blues guitarists around the world love and respect him.
Yeah, you stop anyone on the street and be like, what's a Rory Gallagher song? He's got a festival in the north of the country.
Where they often, like they say that people from 30 countries come to see him.
Yeah.
Like, where are you counting the...
Yeah, well, there's not that many countries, really.
That's still a good chunk of countries.
Sure.
But I would say more of like how many people are attending.
That's
if you
more
said
important.
If, if there's 10,000, but if there's
Yeah.
like 40 people from 30 countries, that's very impressive
Yeah,
in terms of the countries.
sure.
But yeah, I'd maybe go off the population of the festival.
Yeah.
But so he goes with Donal. At first, there's 6 months because of the last contract, I guess, he would have had with Taste.
Yeah.
But it's at the time that, like Taste are finishing, they're on the rise to become a giant band.
Right.
That they're they're in the UK charts with their album. And they're well respected. And this would be a time where I guess like singles wouldn't necessarily have really kicked into, I was going to say what they are now, what they were probably 20 years ago to 30 years ago. That was like a big deal, like a release. People would go crazy for. Well, no one's listening to the radio now, but back then,
No, but 70s, 80s, not. Yeah, that's like
it was all beginning.
you need a single.
Yeah.
To break in.
Now, not necessarily at the late 60s, early
Okay.
70s. You could just be known for this, which is why he does really well for a while. So Rory can't record or perform, I don't think, for like 6 months once he leaves Taste because of that last contract.
Right.
Now he brings in 2 Belfast musicians, Wilgar Campbell on drums, and the bassist he would go on to work with for 20 years, Jerry McAvoy.
Right.
So he's mates with him. It seems to be him and Donal are the only lads he can stand for any longer than about between 2 months and 3 years.
And maybe the other way around as well.
I'd imagine so. Like Jerry, he has a biography out that I do want to read. Just to let's get the bass player's perspective.
Yeah.
But he would release his classic album in May of 1971, the self-titled Rory Gallagher.
Okay.
Not instant fame across the world, but again, same thing, well respected. Does well relatively in the charts considering the type of music that it is.
Great blues music.
Rock and blues music that wouldn't necessarily be pop music, and there's no singles from.
Right.
Yeah. But then he goes ahead, that's May, and then in the November of the same year, he does something mad.
Yeah.
Deuce. Drops a deuce.
Oh, he puts out a second album.
Second album.
Damn.
A couple of months after his first one. Yeah, the album recorded in Tangerine Studios in Dalston, London.
Yeah.
That was usually a studio that was used for reggae bands.
Yeah.
But seemingly, I guess he liked like the big cacophonous, echoey sound of it.
Sure.
It was right beside a bingo hall. So
Okay.
to make sure that they didn't have, quote, the sound of 2 fat ladies screeching through. Not my words.
Yeah.
Although I did choose to put them in this.
Sure.
Bleeding through the walls. And also, because Rory wanted the energy of a live gig, they often recorded straight after coming back from a live gig at nighttime. which would have meant you didn't have to mention the fat ladies.
Yeah. But I guess probably the worst time
When you're wrecked tired and
when you're like,
drunk.
because when you're coming off a live gig, by the time you get into your transport, get down to the studios, you're in traffic for a little bit. Maybe not that much because it's nighttime. You get in, get the keys set up in the studio. Probably the worst time to
3
be
to
recording.
4 a.m. Perfect time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lost the adrenaline and now you're just dog tired.
Yeah. If you're ever...
We know when you got off stage after the show and you're just like, I fucking... Woo! I'm the king of the world. Then someone tries to talk to you and after 2 sips you're about to fall asleep in your chair.
And Rory just turns around to everyone and says, now put down those pints. Well, pints...
Rory's never said that in his
He was
life.
probably all right for the pints. That was grand. He didn't like any of the musicians touching anything harder than that.
Right.
He didn't want people... The musicians weren't allowed to be on the gear / even joints, I assume, is from what people...
You telling me he was recording in the reggae studio after hours and nothing.
That's why he wanted the smell to clear out a good 4
Yeah,
hours, 5 hours
yeah.
after. But yeah, things are... he's top of the world now. That same year, he's called to record with his heroes. Muddy Waters.
Damn.
Lonnie Donegan of
No
Skiffle
way.
fame.
Donegan got him in.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great Balls of Fire.
Mm-hmm. Now, Muddy Waters, for his London sessions, he got Rory to play lead guitar on 3 songs. Waters is supposed to have said that his style of playing was as close as he could find to his own / the Chicago style of the bottleneck blues. Yeah, even more so than Eric Clapton, which a lot of people were surprised that he didn't get the shout, given that he was already Cream were bigger.
Sure.
And then after that, he went on and was in Blind Faith and is known as a guitar god around the world. He went and called the Little Irish lad.
Yeah. Closer to London, maybe less of a big name. Get someone else in.
No, because that's we're getting all the famous people. He was getting huge
You wanted
musicians
like
from the English scene.
All right.
And he went and called Rory.
Yeah.
So now he nearly didn't make it to that gig as he was booked in Leicester,
Right.
which is famous for being 100 miles away from London.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they had to tear the arse out of the road to get back because he wouldn't cancel the gig. So you had to do the gig and then come all the way back. And supposedly Donal says, and most of the stories we're going to hear are from Donal.
Right.
Donal said that Muddy had a glass of champagne waiting for him when he came through the door. It's like, sure, you'll have a drink. Now, he probably didn't say it in that accent.
No.
Yeah. There's a story of him playing as well with Jerry Lee Lewis around the same time.
What was then that story? He came in and just gave
He
him
already
champagne.
gave, he was worried about on the way back. He's like, I'm going to be late after missing my chance to be
Yeah.
a hero. What's going to happen? As soon as you get in there, you realise, don't worry, your hero's an alcoholic as well.
Fair play to him for not cancelling the gig.
He should have cancelled the gig.
He should have cancelled.
He should have cancelled the gig.
That's
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity to play with your hero and you're like, I'm already booked in to do some other show. You know what? No. I wouldn't have done it, but fair play to him.
Yeah, when it works out, it's great.
Yeah.
And if it didn't, you'd be like, well, that
was the stupidest thing he's ever done.
Yeah. Which will become a theme as we go along.
Okay.
So there's also a story around the same time of Jerry Lee Lewis calling him and saying, come down and jam with us. We're going to do a recording. At some point, Jerry Lee Lewis's manager comes in and says, you're playing too much of that honky-tonk old style. How about we do something new? He said, like what? He said, like the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction. And Jerry Lee Lewis had never heard the song.
Okay.
So all the other musicians started laughing at him because he's an old man. He doesn't know hot rock.
Yeah.
But then Rory was the only person to say straight-faced. So they became friends.
Okay.
Which I don't think is a real story.
No. So everyone was laughing at him because he hadn't heard the Rolling Stones.
Heard the Rolling Stones Satisfaction at the time.
Yeah.
So then Rory goes over and he teaches him. And then there's a photo where we saw it there of him. On the way in. That's a story that's him teaching him the words to Satisfaction and how to play it.
Okay. Very sweet.
So that's where you get that cool photo that you'll find if you come down to the Rock and Roll History Museum experience.
There you go.
Now, so the same year, he's voted ahead of Clapton, Jimmy Page, Jerry Garcia, Pete Townsend as Melody Maker's best guitarists in the world.
Nice.
/ of the year. He'd again released 2 albums in 1973, Blueprint and Tattoo, before doing a live album in 1974. That's the famous Rory, like the Irish tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
So
when he was that, maybe this comes up later on because he was always getting into lists of musicians, but is it that, top guitarist list where they go to him and he's like...
And he opens it up and he looks down through it and he's like,
where
I don't see B.B. King.
Yeah. Which is just take the fucking compliment.
Just take the compliment.
Yeah. So yeah, he lists off all the musicians that he idolized. All the guitarists he idolized is like, where are they?
Which seems to be that I
don't
don't know.
why he said it like
I don't know if there's a single interview from any famous musician that, like, or guitarist at the time, whenever they're told you're the best in the world, they always have their own way of dealing with it. Like Jimi Hendrix, was it the Dick Cavett show that he like that said to him, and he says, "Oh, you're the best guitarist in the world." He says, "Maybe the best one sitting in this chair."
Yeah.
And then the other famous one, in fairness, is that on another show he was asked, "What's it like to be the world's best guitarist?" He said, "I don't know. Go ask Rory Gallagher."
Damn. Nice. I get that feels like a game in and of itself, just to find the most humble way to accept being the best guitarist in the world.
While also not picking like Clapton or Page or any.
Oh yeah, you can't pick anyone else on the list. You got to be like, you got to pick old like bluesgrass.
Yeah, where's Rory on this list?
Yeah, where's Boxcar Tim?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for
pick the guy who doesn't have a single in the world.
Yeah, pick a guy who's dead, preferably.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
but now he's getting ready for his tour of Japan, where he's greeted by adoring fans, which he said he didn't really realize because there's going to be loads of people over there. But that's a good, you're big in Japan, that like old trope.
Yeah.
But at the time, this would have been, you wouldn't have known if you were famous over there because.
Sure, how would you? Well, presumably they had a little idea if there was like booking a tour over
and
there.
Album sales, yeah, but just not the level of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but he said he did find it really weird because in Europe and everywhere else in the world, they'd appreciate the music as it was all been played, whereas the Japanese just stayed there and just went, until at the very last song or at the end of the last song, and then they'd go all crazy at once because they just wanted to respect the musician.
Okay,
so they thought that they were absolutely shy.
Okay.
Until you just get the end and you just get like ravenous applause.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still the same.
Maybe that was the same we were talking about the Beatles thing earlier on. Maybe that's why they could hear themselves. Who knows?
But something different about these last two albums is that he's added a keyboardist, changing his ways. He gets Lou Martin, which is said to
fill
he
left the Showband ways behind, and he's bringing in some man on the fucking
it's more
the
of
Ivories,
more of a Jerry Lee Lewis type keyboardist to really fill out the sound. Because I did see plenty of there's a lot of revisionist reviews.
Oh, really? Of a dead musician?
Yeah, and after he's already become we'll just go back and add another star to that one. That a lot of people had said that the first two albums he'd released sounded fairly threadbare because he wasn't doubling up. Like, he wasn't like Brian May and doing like 200 recordings of like every single song and just layering them on top of each other. That he would just record all of his albums, his studio albums, like it was a live album, and just throw the mics onto everything, one take, just go. So he was kind of notorious for his banging through a whole album in the space of like a week or two. Whereas everyone else was like, let's just take like 6 months. And when we're off the gear, we'll do a serious month of rehearsal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that he would just go in and just crack out albums. So a lot of people said that his sound was like thin. Right. And it wasn't what it could be. If you go back and listen to them, it sounds great. It sounds like what a guitar is meant to sound like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to be stupid about it, but it's like earthy and raw and all those words that people probably overuse to describe the music of the time.
Sure. But I mean, there's a lot of revisionism. It's hard to know. Music is very subjective, and maybe at the time I think
every music reviewer should have to be put into a booth on their own, listen to the album, one go, come out, write down a star rating, and then that's it. Yeah.
And then everyone just ignores it. What's the famous like Pinkerton, Weezer's second album, third album? Second album, terrible reviews, and is now retroactively, I think it was in like Rolling Stone's worst album of the year, and is now also in their top 10 albums of the 90s. But they at least had the decency to keep the original review up, unlike a lot of other publications just got rid of it. Yeah, it's like one
keep
star.
Keep the review up. Fire the journalist.
Fire the journalist.
Look, but music's meant to be subjective.
Yeah.
It challenges you. It challenges you so much you think it's shit.
They weren't ready for a whiny man. He was a thing. He knew a thing or two about Japanese culture.
But so these next two albums are very well reviewed. But of the original ones, like Bill Hicks, big fan. You know how he likes his music.
Bill Hicks?
Yeah, he said that he had a couple of copies he would have burnt out of Rory Gallagher's of Deuce.
I'm sorry, is that what the second album was called? Deuce?
Deuce, yeah.
Oh, that's great. I thought you were just saying like he did a Deuce.
No, he's dropping a Deuce.
Okay. Oh, okay. I've been listening to a lot of Bill Hicks ever since we talked about him in that last episode. God, he's shit.
Yeah, go back and listen to him again now.
Yeah,
With
go
the Rory Gallagher
Yeah.
knowledge.
He's the opposite, I guess. At this time,
Turns
he
out
was
he's the Pinkerton of comedians.
at the time he was very well reviewed and revered. But going back and watching, he is funny. I need to watch more of him. I've just
Yeah.
been watching clips.
Yeah, I'm just watching clips, granted, of his comedy, which
Of
you're
his
not a
comedy,
fan of.
yeah. No, I was a fan of him. I'll
And
get
you
back
watched his
again.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched a lot of his stuff when I was like in my early 20s. I was like, this is great. And now, if you saw that guy walk into a comedy club dressed in all black, wearing sunglasses and a fucking fedora and smoking, and just being like, "I got news for you, non-smokers. You're gonna die too."
Yeah, but now, granted, there would have been no one at the. This would have been the equivalent of like
I know.
Showband stuff.
I know.
That's all
it's-
comedians were.
I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're probably right. But we're here to talk music.
Yeah.
Now, but yeah, like Slash would have talked about Deuce as well, and Johnny Marr. And,
Yeah.
like a lot of musicians would have been influenced by it. So maybe
Sure.
like the musicians loved it, but critics, not I guess. When I
What
was
the hell
thinking
would
now,
critics
well,
know?
try and go find the negative reviews now. I guess that'd be
Yeah.
a game. But now, so the next tour he records the live album, the Irish
Yeah.
tour. So he had done the European one in 72 and in the Irish in 74. So that record was put together from shows in Dublin's Carlton Cinema across from the Savoy, which is that Dr. Quirky's now?
Oh.
I could have looked into that anyway.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
Cork City Hall. And despite the chaos happening up north at the time, which meant many bands refused to play, Rory performed at Belfast's Ulster Hall.
Yeah.
Rory insisted on playing Belfast at least once a year. He played Ulster Hall more than any musician still today.
Really?
Yeah. Just because he
Oh.
would have done the same venue in Belfast once a year.
Sure.
Or just
True.
Ulster Hall, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever else is not playing.
But sorry. You said he played Ulster Hall more than any other musician.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, they would have
There's
been.
been punk bands playing shit venues the whole time.
Yeah.
But he was probably... A lot of people wouldn't have been playing Ulster Hall during
Yeah,
the
right beside like
key
the
years.
most bombed hotel. Is that right beside it?
It is right
It
across
is,
the
yeah,
road from
yeah,
it,
it
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
The most
Oh.
bombed music hall right beside.
Yeah, but if the hotel's the most bombed hotel, that's, all the bombs are going there.
Mm.
If anything, maybe it's the safest place.
Well, it's the safest place at a Rory gig because everyone could put aside their other differences,
Yeah.
these trivial things,
Yeah.
and then because there's a story of him coming out on stage and just giving them the peace sign, and everyone been like, "Yeah, that's what it's all about."
That's what it's all about,
Rock,
brother.
man.
Yeah.
And also, please keep playing. You're the only one. If ye start anything,
Yeah.
you've got nothing again for the next 10 years. So it was on this tour that renowned rock and roll film director Tony Palmer, he would have done stuff for Cream, Hendrix, Zappa, Beatles. He recorded a lot of the tour and with the intent of doing a TV special. But by the end of the tour, he said the footage was too good and he'd have to give it a theatrical release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did he?
Oh yeah.
All right, yeah.
There's a full feature-length documentary to go with the album. So
Sweet.
it's worth for both. Yeah, check
Yeah.
out. But now Lou Martin, the keyboardist at the time, so he's in for those two, and then I think he's out by 1975. So he's straight back to his old three-piece rock and roll. Get back to the good
Back
old
to the
days.
trio, yeah.
Now, because he's now out of that contract with Polydor, who
Right.
I assume were like, would you just do a single? You've had all of these albums get into the charts. You're touring everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You're selling out. We could really bring you to any, like
Yeah.
all of those other bands would have been.
But they're still making their money. I guess.
Yeah,
I
but-
think singles are just easy ways to make money.
It's a way to get all the other casuals in, where you're like,
Yeah.
this is great at a time when everyone's looking at guitar music, and there's a load of lads who are like, oh yeah, like Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Hendrix, Cream, all of this. But it's like, yeah, if you did just get and like open up it a little bit, you get
Yeah.
70% more people into all these gigs, easy.
Yeah.
Maybe like 370.
Do a radio hit.
Yeah, but even people talked about that like at the with Zeppelin, that like they got way more famous like on their fourth or fifth album in.
Sure.
That it's not just going to be. So you have to find the guys who are like have the way to listen to the music, like have the LP itself,
Yeah.
a good player, have the speakers, all of that.
But if, like, as radio gets bigger and bigger, you need something that's not 17 minutes long, is not all shredding, and has like a catchy pop hook.
Yeah, and in fairness, Rory does have that. That people
Yeah.
often say that he's like, he'd always just do the 9-minute songs. Right? A lot of his like great catchy tunes are 4 minutes,
Yeah.
5 minutes long. These would have been perfect radio hits.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's why I wouldn't be surprised if it was he wanted out of this contract. Now, obviously, he was a workhorse and he was just getting through like like Noel Gallagher back in the day of like, I'll just I'm not never going to write a bad song. I'll just hammer out like loads of albums all at once. But he does go through like 6 in the space of a couple of years with them, and then straight away signs to Chrysalis Records.
Okay.
Now this is at 1975.
Right.
This would be good and bad, I guess.
Chrysalis.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they also didn't know what they were getting into, that he just won't do. Like, times eventually will.
They probably
change.
saw him and they're like, "Geez, Palador are missing a trick here. He hasn't even released a bloody single. Wait till we get
Imagine
him."
if you tried pushing it.
Yeah. We could make a mint.
So here he does his albums: Against the Grain, Calling Card, Photo Finish, Top Priority. 4 albums in 5 years again.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of animosity. Rory, he didn't want to be famous. He is an artist at heart. During the recording of Calling Card, he didn't want his sound cleaned up by Deep Purple bassist and friend Roger Glover, so he just remixed it himself. I think this is the first time he wasn't going to produce the album himself and just let someone else do the work. And then as soon as it was done, he was like,
I don't like that.
you know what?
Let me just...
I don't know if this Deep Purple are ever going to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then also Chris White of Jethro Tull, Blondie, Spandau Ballet, he produced them. So he thought he should make the song Edged in Blue a little bit shorter and release it as a single, and then change the name of the album to that as well instead of Calling Card.
Right.
And then Rory flipped
But that's
out.
my calling card.
Yeah, Rory flipped out on that one as well.
Sure.
Then there's Photo Finish, which was called that because he got the album to the label just at the last minute. Now, I say last minute. The real last minute would have been the year before when the album was mixed and ready, and then Rory heard it and threw it in the bin.
Yeah, okay.
When I read that, I was like, all right, fair enough. But surely they have control over it, and that's not just the one pressing of the album. But you're like, I wouldn't put it past him.
Has he just he's struck amazing deals with these record companies? That he has final say over this stuff?
That he's probably not get, maybe like
I mean, to be fair, he's churning out, like, usually the record industry come up to get the loggerheads with musicians when they haven't put something out. You know, you have a great album, you get signed to a record label, like, when you need to put something else out in the next couple of years. If he's producing an album a year,
and they're all getting rave
he's probably
reviews.
allowed, like, if he throws one in a bin, he's going to have another one a couple of months later. You know what I mean?
Another year, I guess.
Yeah,
but that's a whole year of sales.
I know, but he's already given you 4 albums.
Yeah, but you've got nothing else between album. Like a single for another band is like an album for him.
Yeah,
whereas now
fair.
you have no Rory for 2 years.
Yeah. What about a B-side? Albums shouldn't have another side.
When I see it, because it's also the time when, like, not rock, but music in general, that it's becoming more easily accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Not just to listen to, but to perform as well. And
Sure.
styles are changing, and you're starting to get into the 80s now. And the 80s obviously known for like hair metal and stuff, like people coming through like Bowie, and even you see how, like the Stones to change their sound all the way through. Rory's kind of doing blues and different slight variations of that all the way through. And you're like, you need to kind of stay on that. If you're going to take 2 years off, imagine how much would go through the world in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to come back with another, admittedly great,
but another
just blues album.
What about
The sound of 2 years ago.
Rory's new wave phase?
Then he never got there.
No.
Yeah. He did say at some point, he's like, I know who I am. I'm not going to be like the Police or who else?
He hates reggae, famously.
He just likes the sound that's created.
Yeah.
The spaces it's created.
Yeah.
But that he had said that he was like, I'm not going to play with an orchestra. I'm going to play with a giant brass section.
Okay.
That's still different than, but brass would have been probably like part of the blues, like trombones and such.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's changing anyway.
Yeah. Now, so that album, when he had scrapped that, it was initially done by Elliot Mazer, who's famous for working with Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Janis Joplin, Santana, Sinatra, and Rory heard that and he was like, you don't know your arse from your elbow. I'll tell you how it's done. One mic, throw it in the middle of the room. We'll all play it live 2 times over. If that doesn't work, don't use it. I'll just go on a year-long tour.
He's probably looking forward to working with a real musician, I guess.
So you can kind of see it then at that stage why Rory didn't hit the...
The image of Rory getting just fucking it in the bin is very funny.
Any of these people he ever has an issue with in terms of how they've produced or mixed his music, you can just click through onto their Wikipedias and just see There's so many gold albums, so many awards.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
He made them work harder probably for it.
He made them work for someone else.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to a pitch to go to a Shite Talk live event.
We've got a live show coming up on January 30th, 2025 in the Laughter Lounge, Dublin. You can get tickets for the event on the Laughter Lounge website, and you can find the link for it in any of our social media links or underneath any episode of the show.
There's a 20% discount code for any Patreon members, so basically that's a free Patreon for a month.
Yeah.
And then also a ticket to the show. It's a good deal.
Hell of a deal. It's the perfect Halloween present, Christmas present, New Year's Eve gift, or etc. So we'll see you in the Laughter Lounge on January 30th, 2025.
Shafter.
Good luck.
But so it's fairly obvious that he didn't really want fame, because before he signed for Chrysalis and after he'd left Polydor, he was about to embark on a Japanese tour, I believe, at the time, and he gets a call from the keyboardist for the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
They say, why don't you come over here, because Mick Taylor's after leaving the band. And we're looking for a guitarist. Now, Donal, the brother, said that Rory was the only one so naive he thought they were just looking to jam with him. But then
Right.
I've also heard him say that he's like, actually, they called him to go and be in the band.
Yeah.
The story goes, sure, he went over and he just wanted to jam with the lads. And after 3 or 4 days of jamming with them, he said, it's not for me. I can't be the third or fourth choice in any band. That's probably why, like, you wanted to be the main front and solo. Like,
Sure.
If that was a problem in taste,
Yeah,
imagine the issue of being behind Jagger
Yeah.
and Keith Richards.
Yeah.
Uh,
But also, like stepping into Mick Taylor. Like,
Mick Taylor
You're not-
having left the band because not getting credit for songs that he wrote,
Sure.
and not getting as much of an impact on the
Yeah.
band creatively as he wanted to do, and not getting credit for some of the stuff that he did, that he says he wrote.
but there's, I can't, or who was their manager? He was a con artist.
Oh,
I mean, he might have been gone even at that stage, but there's no way that if he joined up with them, he wouldn't have been able to, like, throw an album in the bin after a year work.
no, he would have
That's
had to start releasing singles.
Would have
Something-
actually worked as a session musician,
Yeah.
which he probably has no interest in.
No, it doesn't seem to get as much interest in that. He wants
Yeah.
to like improvise.
What's better,
every night.
playing with the Rolling Stones or going over, jamming with them and going, lads, best of luck.
Not for me.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'll let you know how it works
It'll
out.
never work out. Also, Keith Richards and a lot of the Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
pretty famous for loving drugs. Something that
Which
Rory
he-
would
yeah.
have been also famous as they were for their music.
Yeah. They both felt as passionate about drugs, but just on opposite
The
directions.
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Something that Rory might have been on. That he's
Speaking of the spectrum.
So Donal's wife at some point, because Donal said this in an interview, he's like, my wife, she thinks Rory might have been autistic, because he was just obsessed with the guitar, didn't take a wife, didn't really have women around ever, and after he was done playing live shows, or if he wasn't recording with people, he would just be a hermit in his gaff, just writing more music and just being obsessive about one particular thing. And not even like particular, like all the other styles of music. It was kind of like this blues
Yeah.
and maybe some bluegrass and country and stuff, but like it was just that very specific genre. And as you go through the decades, he's still kind of fixated on this style. So
Maybe.
a lot of famous people who are very
Did she
good at
say? She said that.
She
did
said that he said that she said it. He might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
now-
interesting. Well, he liked both kinds of music, blues and country.
But so that's the one where he turns it down, because they're hell bent on getting them.
Yeah.
And then
Which again, like, that's a much better story, especially for like
no,
it's sort of not a, like, it's a sort of humble. If you, like, that's a great pub story.
yeah, which
Years later, just to be like, instead of like, we played and we were always, it never really worked out, and they were already famous, and I was just kind of, the fifth Beatle kind of thing. Instead of that, just sitting in a pub years later, and was like, and I said, thanks,
but no thanks.
no thanks.
But there's another story that
Yeah.
I've heard, that I've seen.
He joined the band.
He is Ronnie
He was
Wood.
in the Rolling Stones. He changed his name.
No, so that he went over and Mick collects him from the airport.
Yeah.
They hop in a cab. They go straight down to rehearsal. Keith Richards doesn't show up. Mick turns to Rory and says, I'm working on a tune. Give me a riff.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of Start Me Up.
Okay.
Yeah, which is not verified anywhere. apart from in this script and on one or two dodgy internet sites.
I'd believe it.
2000s that I read.
I'd believe it.
Now, that could be bollocks. But or they could have worked on. He might have had the lyrics to that, and then Rory played a riff, and then you're like, okay, they completely changed it afterwards. Because it would have been in a tuning and a style that he never played.
He started
none of his songs were ever in that.
Sure.
So it's just now maybe he would have been listening to some of their stuff and been like, all right, I can just easily just jump into that.
Yeah.
But probably not. Now he also there's another song that they supposedly worked on called "Miss You" that's on one of their albums. The Stones. Then Rory told Donald that that's something that they'd worked on.
Okay.
But Rory wouldn't have told anyone else that.
Yeah.
So, but now on the second night, Keith showed up and they got on famously over their love of country and blues.
Nice.
The two types of music. He was asking for what the clarity on the crack of I've got all these Japanese dates. And after I'm done with them, I have to go over to Japan for some gigs. He asked Mick, and Mick says, "Go speak to Keith because I'm not talking to him." Right. This is in their other famous not talking to each other phases.
Yeah, one of their many.
Yeah. So he goes up to Keith, who's passed out on a bed, and he keeps going back to him supposedly every half an hour to try and get an answer, but he's just comatose.
Right.
So he spends all night long going back and forth, waiting for him to wake up, trying to get an answer from them to see what happens. And at 10 o'clock the next morning, everyone's in bed. He just picks up his guitar and his amp and he leaves.
Yeah.
So it's the complete opposite.
Sure.
That looks like he went to every single measure possible to try and be with this famous drug-addled single release. And which, I don't know, I would have believed the first one.
You probably wanted to play with them, though.
Yeah, but if he didn't like the drugs, and if he didn't like that whole scene,
but even when you're there, you probably want to be like,
I have a
song.
Yeah.
Let's just do something now. But it doesn't seem like it would be a good fit for him at all.
Yeah, but obviously, regardless of that, it's probably a good thing because he left and he made Against the Grain and Calling Card in the next 2 years because he's just as prolific after that.
Yeah.
So he sells like 30 million albums in his career.
Yeah,
which is good going for. What's seemingly not a commercially successful artist. Yeah. 30 million albums. Yeah. Let's say that again.
To a man who's like allergic to playing the game. Yeah. Yeah. Like he's done extremely well.
And after once he scraps the first version of Photo Finish, so that one he dumps in the bin, he stays in America, in San Francisco. He sees the Sex Pistols and thought, despite being one of the hottest properties in rock at the time, he should split up with his band again.
Okay.
Only keeping Jerry McAvoy, the bassist from Belfast.
This is the one thing that turns him. He's like, man, we're putting safety pins on our nose. You need to dye your hair green. Wait till you hear punk.
But no, he doesn't. He does embrace the newer sounds, but he never went like that.
Sure.
Yeah, but
what, he saw the Sex Pistols and fired his band.
Fired his band entirely. Yeah. So I don't know. It could have just been. Now you never know. Maybe if the band are. I don't want to just say it's all down to maybe the band take drugs or maybe they don't want to play 4 hours improvised sets. Yeah. Every night of the week and get, as his brother would have said, often in America, 3 different flights in one day.
Yeah. The Sex Pistols are, they're great. They're amazing. But they're also shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're not musicians. They're a boy band.
They're a boy band,
for punk.
But maybe that's why he saw, Jesus, we're getting too similar to this.
Yeah, maybe.
So he does a set at Rockplast over in Germany. Yeah. The Germans love him, obviously famous guitarist. They like their music.
Sure.
They want to go and do a documentary on Rory. Now he's not really booked in for any gigs, so his brother says what we'll do is we'll throw one on in Macroom in County Cork.
Right.
And that's a famous gig that they go over and film. Yeah. So it's around this time then that he doesn't have a band apart from a bassist. Right. Now, having said that, he only is a 3-piece band. Maybe if he wanted to get a keyboardist again. But at the last minute, he has to put together an entire band. He's been playing with this other lad for a decade or more.
And I'm sure there's people lining up to play with him. It's funny now, him and Phil Lynott. In this period, there's a lot of what you've been talking about is going to be a big crossover for the Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott. At this period, in the 70s, basically, he's going through a lot of different bands, and the musicians are switching in.
The band is staying the same. The name of the band stays the same. The musicians constantly change. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be very drastic styles. Yeah, that it's they just get a new drummer in, and that guy Ted McKenna, he learns all the songs on the plane ride over. Okay, goes straight up on stage, and seemingly it's grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose they're a blues band, so they're just like improvising.
Yeah, okay.
But because Rory would have his songs, but they're
Yeah.
just going on long interludes and just
Sure.
But it's the kind of story here. It's like, yeah, that's real rock and roll, or is it just a really bad career choice to consistently kick out a load of members
Yeah.
of your band at the worst like possible time? Maybe his brother shouldn't have booked that gig when he knew he didn't have a band as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the Germans wanted to see it in Macroon.
but it's not like the final nail in his coffin. But you can just start to see some of these bad decisions like snowball.
Yeah.
Whereas you probably get away with it as a younger man, but he begins to get old. He goes to London. He becomes more of a recluse, and he still does. I think his last like 13 years, he ends up doing 3 albums, which is not like 6
This
albums in
prolific,
5
yeah,
years or
yeah,
5
yeah.
albums in 4. But he goes to the Conrad Hotel in at Chelsea Harbour. He starts drinking and chatting to bands there, namely the musicians who were playing downstairs in the hotel.
Yeah.
Which point the keyboardist is said to have just either been too drunk to play
Okay.
downstairs after drinking with him, or else he'd be missing the show because he'd be up in Rory's bedroom just jamming, tapping on his knees.
Yeah, would you want to go play it downstairs in a hotel where you've been hired to do a
To do a
job,
gig,
or
every
go
day.
drinking
Yeah.
in a living legend's hotel room?
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's a dream. And
Yeah.
because they said that he would hold court just around that bar
Yeah.
in the hotel when any of the other musicians had come by, like any of the famous ones would just stay. And it's just like, sure, is that Rory Gallagher? It's like, are you playing a gig here tonight?
Not anymore.
No.
Me,
no,
you,
no.
pints.
Yeah. But yeah, it said that around this time he would have turned down the chance to play on one of Jagger's solo albums.
Okay.
It's around the late 80s, I guess. He would have it said he'd to develop like a fear of flying.
Okay.
Now he would have drove in vans like a lot of the people back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and buses and stuff for a lot of gigs. His brother, again, said that they could be like up to like 3 flights in the one day. Imagine flying into places and out of places on the same day
sure,
together. Because he also just wanted to be gigging as much. There's no like, play a gig off a Friday night, take Saturday and Sunday off. He's like, I want to gig every single night possible.
Right.
But so he's like, he's going out over to, he plays behind the Iron Curtain. Then at some point I did see
Following in Joe Dolan's.
Joe Dolan, he doesn't go to
footsteps?
Brazil as far as I could see.
Okay, yeah.
Not for as long as prolonged time. He definitely doesn't have the Brazilian police wake him up in his jocks with guns right to his
No one's going to be as rock and roll as Joe.
no,
That's
you're never going to get that.
But
Yeah.
so most of what you're talking about, you haven't mentioned like North America too much. He's mostly.
Oh no, so
Europe,
he's been
UK.
gigging non-stop over there because in the early
Okay.
years the band would have supported like Clapton's bands and
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah,
so he
yeah.
would have been over there and he would have been touring around a lot. But come the late 80s and early 90s, I remember seeing an interview where someone asked him, he's like, Rory, we haven't seen you around as much as usual, and he's like, oh, I've been busy. We were over there in Russia. We did a college tour around America like twice. That took like 2 years. You don't really hear about college tours, and you're like, why are you playing college tours?
Yeah.
But now it's the late 80s or early 90s, and rock has gone through 5 or 6 different generations,
Yeah.
and he's still not releasing singles,
Yeah.
and he's not touring as much as he was. And now he's starting to get not only the fear of flights, but he's starting to get stage fright. And it's multiple people saying that he would have been like 20 minutes before going to do a gig, been like, I don't know if I can even play guitar anymore. I'm shite. They're expecting an amazing guitarist and I'm going to be awful. And then they'd say, sure, he'd go out there and after one song, he'd be grand, just like the old Rory.
Yeah.
But other people would say, oh yeah, sure, he'd take something real quick. And if you go out there and he'd be absolutely grand.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like drugs.
No, until later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim said he doesn't like
fear
them.
of flying is code for becoming what maybe a hypochondriac,
Right.
and starting to take a hypochondriac or just addicted to different pills.
Right.
Now, his brother Donald does, like, he runs his estate.
Okay.
So you're not going to, well, depending on the Irish brother, I guess. He goes on 2 ends of the spectrum where he's like, he never touched that and he was a lovely lad. Stop
Yeah.
spreading lies about him. He was the worst fucking prick in the world.
Sure.
Donald's very much so on the good side
Yeah.
of things. Where he's like, now in fairness, he does say at one point he breaks in the 80s he breaks into his room and stages it like robbery just so he can get into his luggage and see what the feck he's on.
Oh shit!
And he goes and sees that he's like
He breaks into Rory's room.
yeah, just to go through his luggage and find like his pills, because I think it's the basis that at some point said that she used to like be a teetotaler against anything apart from alcohol, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I've got the sniffles. He's like, hold on a second, and he runs back with like, take whatever you need, I know everything. So he's like, they say he's nearly like a hypochondriac, which is just a fancy way of saying addict. And having access to all this stuff that Donald
he's only got all the medicine because he's worried about ailments. But then Donald said that at some point he would have seen that he had medication that you would have only been able to get if you'd been in a psych ward, which none of them would have known about. So it's either that he was getting that medication or he was in a psych ward and didn't tell anyone. But he would have probably...
Definitely, either way, shouldn't have been drinking as much as he was.
But like psych ward stuff, it could be like ketamine, like
could have been
heavy sedatives, which would have been
probably But now when I was growing up, I would have heard like, oh sure, he was on like just 2 bottles of bourbon a day, and would have just been a heavy drinker, and sure that's why he would have passed away. We're getting close to it now, like at the age of 46, 47. In the last documentary, they start to say, sure, it wasn't the drink at all. It was normal to drink that much. We were all big drinkers.
Right.
Who amongst us? Now, he's not a very tall man. He's very slender. He's very slight. Towards the end, he starts getting very bloated. They say that it's not the drug. It's not the drink, and it's the paracetamol that is meant to not mix very well with alcohol.
It fucks your liver up.
It fucks your liver up real quick. Yeah.
Right.
And seemingly alcohol exacerbates it as much as paracetamol is bad for your liver. Doing it on a load of bourbon is probably not great either, amongst whatever else he would have been on. So like all of us, I guess he wouldn't have told anyone if he had like.
Why paracetamol? Just
because a doctor prescribed it to him. But sure, again, I imagine he was on so many things that he was just prescribing to himself.
Yeah.
For medicine wouldn't have, even now people are like, how can you get sick from taking medicine? It's like vegetables.
Yeah.
It's too much of a good thing.
1 a day. If I take 4 a day, I'll be even better.
But he would like by the end that he would have. They said that he would have been a drinker. Now maybe not that big of a drinker. Obviously, when he was writing music, he'd lock himself into his house for 3 to 5 days at a time and go through a couple of bottles a day, and then he'd come out with an album and drink. Jesus, fair play to him. Probably not ideal.
No. And he's putting out a lot of albums.
Yeah, and the quote from Donald that said, it got so bad that he wouldn't even let the lad into his house to read the gas meter or the water meter. So he is just properly in there, and he's
become a big, very recluse.
And that's what it's fair to say that from other people you'd see interviews. And you get like an idea of their mental state or physical state at the time, or they'd been a lot closer with some friends or have a partner who could have explained to the world then, behind closed doors this is what it was like. He was just behind closed doors completely on his own
and never did interviews. You can't even see him drop off from interviews. He just never.
So the only real way you can get a sense of how like his mental state at the time would be through listening to his music, and it's pretty dark. Okay. That just like when you hear the lyrics like shadow play, and there's a lot of stuff where you're kind of like, now you're. But also, I mean, there's part of that where you're like, the blues people are going to sing about, and rock as well. You're going to pick like there's tried and tested formulas of things that you're going to talk about, and
they're mostly sad.
It's sad, but that could just be a character what someone's talking about. That's not really necessarily. Maybe that's just that kind of is.
Have you got any examples of sad?
I didn't want to write down any of
the fair enough.
But at the age of 40, he gets a liver transplant, and then while in hospital recovering from that, he gets MRSA.
Multiple sclerosis.
Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
Damn, all right, I was way off.
Otherwise known as MRSA.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
But so he gets that while recovering in hospital and then passes away.
Right. So, but he got a liver transplant.
He got the liver transplant, and then while recovering got that like bacterial infection, and then passes away. His body would have been so weak, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
So that's he doesn't. I suppose actually I was going to say that's the end of his albums. It's not, because what happens afterwards is that which feels kind of like bad form. for a man who would have cared about his art and music that much that he had a full creative control over everything. That since then there's been loads of like, oh, we have a live recording from all of these years. Sure, let's just throw that out. Or here's some of the like demo tapes he would have made. Sure, we'll have someone else mix it. You know, he's notorious for loving other people mixing his music. Sure, we'll just release that. So I don't know if you should be listening to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Out of respect for if you have like 100% respect for the artist and his wishes.
Sure. Yeah. Don't listen to all the stuff that he chose not to put out.
Yeah. But his the theatre, his ma used to perform in up in Ballyshannon. Ballyshannon Players. That the main theatre there now, in the local arts centre, was renamed the Rory Gallagher Theatre.
Nice.
2005, and that again is where you have the Rory Gallagher Festival, which is in its 30th year next year, the last weekend of May going into June. Sheena Crowley, daughter of it was John Crowley, Mr. Crowley, he would have bought the guitar from, has set up a GoFundMe, which has raised €33,000 to try and buy back his guitar.
The guitar that the father sold to him.
Exactly, that he would have as a child spent thousands on. And I've seen her do interviews saying that I just think the guitar should be in Ireland, and what's more, it should be in Cork, the home of Rory Gallagher.
Where is it now, though? It's with the brother, is it?
I think it's with the brother, so I don't know if he still lives in Ireland. But you've seen videos online of like famous guitarists having a go of it, like Johnny Marr. I've definitely seen Joe Bonamassa play it, and they bring it around. They did like some like excavation of it a few years ago to go find out what pickups that he had in it.
So they could, turns out the guitar was actually cursed by fairies. It wasn't Rory at all.
Turns out it was fake, and that Crowley lad sold it.
It was a ukulele.
That's how it's meant to sound, Rory. Just throw that through a Vox AC30 with a tube screamer, you'll be grand.
Yeah.
But she's raised a load of money. There's a load of people trying to keep it in the country. Micheál Martin, I think, at some point when he was... Is he from Cork?
Yeah, the shred head himself.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He said that he would have seen, I think, Rory when he was younger play a gig in a hall or something. Yeah, something about when he was a politician down in Cork. Yeah. Saying that should be back down in Cork. It should definitely be in Ireland. You have the Temple Bar Square place.
You know, there's another group that's trying to get it.
I know that. Well, just off camera here, we have the marketing manager for the Rock and Roll History Museum. Now, I'm just saying that if you put your GoFundMe together with Sheena, you can add that together. And O'Donnell says that it's been valued at, or he wants to sell it for between 700,000 and 1 million.
Yeah.
Even if that's pounds or euros. It's a lot. But
I mean, like what? I feel like that's
like Gary Moorso had his guitar sold a few years ago, but I want to say someone might have bought one of them for over 1 million.
Yeah, like that feels like a range.
It was like Kirk Hammett from Metallica.
Yeah,
so that's
where it's going to end up. Like, it's not going to be
too much money in that sense.
It'll disappear into a private collection unless people like
Micheál
Martin step up.
That's If we hadn't, how much did the printer cost?
You've done so much.
How much did the bike shelter cost? That bike shelter is worth a third of a Rory Gallagher guitar.
Yeah, but it can't house bikes.
I don't know. It dealt well enough with acid, like sweat.
Yeah.
It could deal with rain for a little while.
It belongs in a museum.
It does. It should be in a museum, and it's not that expensive.
Or a rock and roll experience of some sort.
This rock and roll experience here.
Is Sheena Crowley related to the true heir to the title of Cork's greatest musician, Jim Crowley?
I was going to say Alistair Crowley.
Alistair Crowley.
I don't know.
They could be related. They're from Cork.
Everyone, yeah. There's not that many people in Cork.
No.
But yeah, Joe Bonamassa would have called him the Rocky Balboa of guitarists, which I just like. I thought was a nice way to
good.
End up.
Yeah, nice line.
And there's that's the quote we'll finish on. Was one I was trying to think of earlier. I'm not going to play with an orchestra. I'm going to play with the big brass section. I'm not going to become Brian Ferry or the Police. I'm going to be Rory Gallagher.
Nice. Yeah.
I like Brian Ferry and the Police.
I like the Police and Brian Ferry. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rory Gallagher.
And Rory Gallagher. There's place for all of them.
Guess, yeah.
Sure.
So that's the end of the Rory Gallagher episode.
Yes.
We didn't go into any of the very dark stuff of the lyrics that he was talking about at the time, or any of the some of the stories that some people say. Like, there's nothing bad
Naysayers.
There. There's nothing bad.
Not your classic rock and roll bad, just kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can learn a lot more about all of that.
Yes.
If you come down here to the Irish Rock and Roll Museum experience.
Yes. There's loads of interesting stuff down here.
Yeah, they've got the U2 room.
Yep.
We're going to go record one in the Phil Lynott
Museum section. Yeah, they've got stuff from Michael Jackson down here.
They've got Michael Jackson's pajamas, and they have a great story about those pajamas.
They do. But also, what was it? I guess when he was touring with the Jackson 5, he'd released solo stuff as Michael Jackson. And that became so big that the Jackson 5 tour didn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah.
So halfway through the tour, they stopped that. But the jacket that he's wearing from the Jackson 5 tour
Is here. Yes.
That's a world-class piece of memorabilia. Like, that's... Whatever about the Rory Gallagher guitar, like that thing.
Whatever about that, no, just meeting him when he was living in out near Grouse Lodge.
Oh yeah, but just think about how fanatic people are about Michael Jackson.
Yeah, they want his pajamas.
Yeah, that's fair as well. Anyway, it's all down here in the basement.
They're all down here. And lots of other stuff as well. It's very good.
Yeah. Also stuff with Irish music.
Oh yeah, the film at the end's very good.
Yeah, they've got Gilbert O'Sullivan's record out there.
Yeah, so go do that.
Yeah.
Right. Good luck.
See ya.